Good afternoon. Think
Hello,
Lab
David
number
Lilia.
19. How are you, Mr. Stanton? Happy Patriots Day.
Is that what today is?
If you're in Massachusetts.
Oh, wow. Happy
Boston
Easter.
Marathon.
All right.
Happy,
I always thought it was Easter Monday, but hey, happy Monday.
yeah, or, Battle of Concord, Battle of Lexington. A little
Really?
Revolutionary War history for you.
Wow. Aren't you a little Bostonian?
Great, great.
I love Boston. I love Boston.
Yeah, have you ever been there for the marathon?
I have not, but I love Boston. And I've got a favorite place to go and get lobster and seafood, and I just love it.
It's a state holiday, so they have no school today. They have nothing.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's a big
Wow.
day. Yeah, and
Okay.
usually the Red Sox play at like noon today. So
Is today the running of the Boston Marathon?
yeah, that's what I just said. I was gonna go, but I had to do the podcast. So
Oh, oh
next
well.
year.
Me, Boston Marathon.
Yeah,
Me, Boston Marathon.
yeah.
Me.
It's a long ways.
It's not about me. It was a fun little thing to tease you about.
Yeah.
Anyway,
All
yeah,
right.
happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
And we chatted earlier today, so I know what we're going to talk about, and I think that'll be interesting.
All right, so let's get into it.
Yeah,
So
let's do it.
negotiation.
Yes.
I hear a lot about people, referring to books. There's a book out now from a former FBI hostage negotiator.
Yeah.
You see it here and there. So the topic is negotiation. Do you
Yes.
think that there's a valid point to it? Do you
Yes.
think there's an art? Do you think it comes from the agent? Does it come from the client? Do you share information with your client when they say, "What would you do?"
Well, I think my answer is all of the above. Do I think it's an art? Yes. Do I think it can be learned? Yes. Are there poor negotiation strategies and good negotiation strategies? I will say I also believe that is to be true. Yes. Have I taken a lot of classes on negotiation? I have. And I talk about this all the time, and my two most favorite negotiation classes was negotiating one and negotiating two. And it was through my education to achieve my CRS designation or the Residential um, Specialist through the National Association of Realtors, otherwise known as the CRS. And I thought it was a really good way to go about it because they taught us there's so many different ways to do it. And there's a bully pulpit, which I don't participate in. But I can recognize it if agent uses it on me, and I'll just say, I'm not going to act that way, not going to participate in that type of negotiation. I like a win-win strategy. And we are both representing people that want the same outcome. Either they want to get the house or they want to sell the house. And
So what do you mean by a bully pulpit? I don't know what that means.
well, there's certain realtors who say, I've been in this business for 35 years. I sell multi-million dollar houses all the time. This is the way it's going to be done. And this, I'm like, you might as well just stop talking because that's a bully pulpit trying to push me back
Gotcha.
on my heels, trying to make me feel inferior, trying to make me feel less than, trying to bully me into a submission or fear. And I'm able to identify that right away.
Do you have examples of how that works? Because I do. And
Yeah, go for it.
the reason I ask that is because of my role being a team lead, then being in charge of a brokerage.
Sure.
Um, I have a lot of new agents who call, something doesn't feel right, doesn't smell right, and they call and they say, well, the other agent's doing this, and they're worried that because they're new, they're doing it wrong. We have a case about one with a old furnace. It was an oil furnace, and the buyer wanted it out. They had put in a new furnace, the seller had, but the old oil. Imagine an old Imagine having basement.
I've never even seen an old oil burning furnace. I've
Oh
never
gosh.
even seen that in all my life.
One of my agents just showed one this weekend.
So I
Maybe
can see
two.
how they would want that out if it's
Yeah.
non-functioning and it's just a
Anyways, so
basic.
the comeback was we don't do that here. Trust me, I've been in this business a long time. And the
Yeah,
agent called me and said, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "No."
yeah.
So, all right.
That's
So
like
I get
that's
it. I get the analogy now. Bully pulpit. I get it.
well, and the other thing is too, like I've been in situations where, you know, we've had an accepted purchase agreement, we've come to terms on price, and we've come to terms on terms. And then we're in the inspection contingency. And then, I am of the mindset that this is not a new house. It should not be expected to be in new condition. I don't think it's appropriate to start asking for things that you clearly saw during your showings and certain things. But here's one. Um, I'm the buyer's agent and I called the listing agent and I state that per the inspection, we identified this and the seller has asked me, the buyer has asked me to talk with you to have the seller make this repair. And immediately, no, my sellers will not do that. I mean, just like that. No, my sellers will not do that. And so that is kind of a bully pulpit, kind of like push you back on your heels, and you're kind of thinking, oh, wow, okay. But I was like, excuse me, sir, but I didn't, Bill, Judy. Um, do you have the ability to make that decision for your seller? Or is it better if you go and talk with them and get back with me later on? He's like, oh, yes, okay, I will. I mean, we can't just say, no, my people are not going to do that.
But is that negotiation? Or
Yeah,
is
because
that
no,
or is
yeah,
that just an agent stepping outside of their role?
I think it was a negotiation tactic. And and after he called back later, the seller agreed to do what we asked.
Okay, so
And yes, I do think that was a negotiation role.
hmm.
You don't think so? David, we don't agree on anything ever.
No, I don't think you're wrong, but I don't know if that's a no. Like at the end of the day, your comment was spot on. It's not us to
What if I would have said to the agent after he said, no, my seller will not do that? What if I'd have said, okay, and then called my buyers and said, I just talked to the agent and they said, no, they're not going to do that. And then my buyers would have said, oh, okay. But instead, I said, do you have the ability to make
No,
that
that's the proper follow-up. That's what I'm saying
right?
is I don't
And
think
guess
that person
what?
was negotiating. I think they stepped outside their role, which is unless they have some type of unilateral agreement that they can speak on behalf of the client in that role, they're not in a position to properly do that. So I think
No.
you hit it on the head. What? Okay.
But I'm going to call that the bully pulpit
No,
because
no,
that's
I think you're
exactly
right.
what that was.
Yeah. So what about Minnesota negotiations? Do you know what that is?
Passive aggressive behavior.
That's where you say, let's say I'm going to come to you and I'm going to say, Mike, I want a $10,000 price reduction. And you go, oh, okay. Then you come back and you go, we'll go nine. And I'll go, well, we'll go one. You go eight. Then we go five
Why is that a Minnesota negotiation?
because it's dead middle.
And sometimes meeting in the middle is a great compromise.
Right. But it's just funny because at times people just randomly, no one wants to offend anyone, in my opinion. And,
True.
and like you said, I think the middle sometimes is the place to go, but I think there has to be a foundation.
I have learned, I mean, growing up in Minnesota, being raised in Minnesota, um, I mean, I never really thought that I was raised in a passive aggressive environment until I went away to college out of state and I was meeting college kids from all over the country, New York, Florida, Chicago, Boston. And, it was identified to me right away, like Stanton, you're always just so yada, yada, yada. The bottom line is over time, I have learned that if I'm asking for something that is legit and I'm representing somebody, I actually have learned I don't care if they get offended because it's my job to represent um, the seller or the buyer, whomever I'm working with. And we just went through that with negotiation on a listing that ended up with the buyer canceling the purchase agreement because finally, per the seller, I was told to say, no, we're done. You want to buy the house, buy the house. You don't want to buy the house, send us a cancellation. And I knew that was going to be offensive to the other agent and to the buyer, but I did what I was told. And the agent was like, well, that's pretty offensive. They don't want to even negotiate. I go, that's what they've told me to tell you. And I've suggested for a while that we try to keep our both of our clients out of the emotional zone because that's when things crumble and that's where they are. And so either buy the house or cancel. And we got a cancellation the next day. And it was probably the best thing that could have actually ever happened.
So when I work with a buyer, I want to hear if you do this. And say my buyer has inspection. I walk them through how it's going to go. I walk them through, they're going to get the inspection report back. And I spend a lot of time, especially if they're newer buyers, and
Hmm.
say, you have hired an independent person to go look at your house and to
Hmm.
find fault.
Yes.
And on average, you're going to probably get between 40 and 70 items. And I always say to them, you have to go into this process as whatever you want to do. If you want the other party to amend the purchase agreement, we're going to
Hmm.
need to negotiate.
Hmm.
So
Right.
you need to have, from a buyer standpoint, you need to have like columns: green, yellow, red. The only thing you really don't need the seller's permission for is to move forward or to cancel.
Hmm.
But anything else, we're going to need to negotiate. So your job as the buyer is you need to look at this with an independent lens, but yet with a bias lens, because you need to think, does this create a deal killer for you or a deal
Hmm.
killer for them?
Hmm.
What do you have resources to do, friends, family, yourself, anything like that? And how much do you need to have done for your own peace of mind, safety, whatever you want to do? And what are the red flags? Like the red flags, certain items are things that we probably should be asking for
Hmm.
because they need to be done because they're red flagged.
Hmm.
And I usually try to go into it that way. What I don't like doing, whether my buyer wants to accept it or to cancel, I don't like
Hmm.
doing anything the day of. I don't like doing,
You
unless,
mean the day you get the inspection?
yeah, yep. Like I want them to sit on it for a day. If they say
Yeah.
we want to cancel or we want to move forward, I say, you know
Hmm.
what, let's just regroup in the morning. But if you want to do it tonight, we can. But my thought is think this through, assuming we have time, and let's go forward.
I think that's a good idea.
And if you
24-hour waiting period. People can kind of absorb things and come to a different conclusion.
and I think, it's okay to give that to people that the buyers trust, whether it's friends, family,
Hmm.
and say, what do you think about these issues? And I usually tell them beforehand some examples they're going to see.
Hmm.
They're probably going to see GFCI. They're
Oh
probably
my
going
God, that's
to
one
see,
of my most annoying
right.
requests. Even like in professional licensed in electrician to put a GCFI outlet. I'm like, oh my God.
And the other one we see a lot of is when you have double tap electrical boxes. And that to me also drives me insane.
Hmm.
I and so I always just say, let's just slow our roll. Let's go through it in a methodical, like you said, keep them out of that emotional zone. I don't think I
Hmm.
ever use that term.
I just kind
Uh,
of started using
no,
that the
but
last 6 months, and it really helps. It's like
no,
we have.
I don't think I consciously labeled that, but I
Mhm.
think I purposefully do it. You know what I mean? Like,
Because
I don't
once
think
you're
I
in an
ever thought those
emotional
through.
zone, it's like you don't, it's like you just don't think clearly anymore. Now you're just either pissed off or you're just, it kind of like where everything just kind of collapses.
Right. And that's what I'm saying is I think that's why I always wanted them to wait a day. I want them to digest the report. I also encourage my clients to print off the buyer or the inspection report.
Hmm.
No one prints off everything. Everyone's
No.
just on their phone. They're looking at it in a 4 inch by whatever, 2.5 inch
Hmm.
screen. And I think you need to see those pictures bigger. I think you need
Yeah.
to see everything and go back and forth. The quality of the report that the inspector gives you
Hmm.
varies great. You could have a really great inspector that uses a really crummy platform, or you could
Hmm.
have a really crummy inspector that uses a really great platform, and
Yeah.
everything's color coded, and you can go from page 4 to page 11 instantly, or see this, see that. I just think printing it off and being, really focus on what you want to do. Then we have a meeting and we go through what are deal killers to you?
Yeah.
What are things
And
you would
deal
like to have?
killers, and deal killers are like big things, like, foundational issues, bowing basement walls.
Well,
That's,
that could
but
absolutely be a different item because that could be cancellation.
well, yeah, I mean, it could be deal killers, which causes for cancellation, or some people negotiate themselves through those with these bracing programs. But
Right.
I mean, the thing is the inspector also has been hired to find things about the property that the new potential buyer should know about. And but the inspector can also say, okay, this is what I found, this is what I found, this is what I found. These are really not big, nothing. I mean, it's kind of a nothing burger. I don't know if I would go and try to get the seller to fix these things because they're really not deal killers, but over time you might want to consider, doing some of these things. I had a deal 10 years
But
ago.
hold on, but how do you negotiate that? So if you
Okay, listen,
have,
I had an inspector almost 10 years ago. It literally killed the deal because he wrote that the house should have gutters. Okay, well, do you ask a seller to install gutters?
right.
Well, because he brought it up, the buyers were just focused on gutters. And I'm like, that's all good and fine, but we I will do whatever you say. If you say I need to get gutters on this house, then we will get gutters on this house. But at the same time, the seller can say, I don't need to put gutters on this house. And that's exactly what happened.
Right, but
So,
but how do you take so let's go back to what I was saying. I take my list, red, yellow, green, whatever.
mhm.
I write up the purchase or the amendment and I go over it again and I give them a copy and I usually wait an hour and say everything on this list that we're asking for, understand we may get all of it, we may get part of it, we may get none of it.
Right.
And say, do you want, is this what we want to do? Yeah, send it to them. They sign it. Then
Yep.
I go to the agent. Do you call the agent or do you send it to the agent? What's your first
Oh,
action?
it's harder to call people these days, but I always text the agent and say, I'd love to talk to you in person. We are about to send over the inspection requests. And it's always better to talk to the other realtor, in my opinion. Now, there are some realtors that just don't want any conversation. They just were like, nope, we're just going to text. And I'm like, whatever. But when there's a line by line request of things that need to be done, and I have received and I have sent, sadly, because I have to be obedient to what my fiduciary is for that particular client. Um, but sometimes when it's, piddly niddly this and that and this and that and this and that and this and that, and this has to be done by, by this time, sometimes it's just easier to ask for a little bit more off the property and then the buyer take care of it at closing. And most oftentimes that is a lot more palatable to the seller. Um, so
What's the most items? Let's go pages. Have you had a two-page amendment?
I have never had a two-page amendment, but I have literally received and I have given, um, I have received and I have given a full page amendment, like literally single spaced. And and I was trying everything in my power to coach the buyer, you know, um, but nonetheless, it always ends up being you do what your client asks you to do because that's our fiduciary. And when I sent this full page amendment, the other realtor literally called me and said, "Does your buyer even want to buy this house?" And I said, "That's a really good question." And I said, "Yes, they do." I said, "So you and I are going to come to terms with, what the seller's willing to do and what the buyer's willing to accept. That's our role." And we got through and they did some things and they didn't do some things. And I had to I had to not tell, but coach my buyer, this is what they're willing to do. And anyway, we did get through it. But I will say, again, I believe it was because the agent and I both talked to each other on the phone.
I had a three-page.
Oh my God. Did you do everything?
I had the seller. No,
Oh, okay.
I had the seller.
What did
Uh,
they say? Like, what did they do? Did they do all of it or did they do some?
Um,
Did they do none of it? Because they could do any of that.
well, I'll just preface it. First of all, it was not a northern deal, which I would
I know.
expect because of the ages of the house. It was it was north of the airport. I don't know if that's considered southeast Minneapolis or if
It
that's
was north, it's probably South Minneapolis,
yeah.
Nokomis-ish area.
Yeah, I think that's where it was. So it's like
Houses from the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, I would think.
yeah, it was just north of Crosstown. Um, but
Yeah.
anyways, there was a lot of things on there that
Hmm.
I would classify the three pages as um in three categories. One was this is what we want the house to be, so we'd like
Hmm.
for you to add things.
Okay.
Hardware, cabinetry, hinges,
Wow.
locks. Then there was a few current issues,
Hmm.
and then there was some, we suspect this is going to be an issue
Hmm.
5 years from now.
Okay.
So we scratched anything that was cosmetic, stuff
And
like
we
that.
suspect this is going to be an issue 5 years from now.
And we got rid of that one.
Hmm.
And so I think we knocked it down to about five items out of,
Okay. So you dealt with things that were currently subpar and
yeah. And
the seller.
you know what was fascinating to me?
Hmm.
The agent who I think did a good job of working with their client because it was just her and I talked and she would call me back. Then like
Hmm.
you could tell I think that both of us were talking to our clients and it was not about us.
Right.
Where we really struggled and I had to keep explaining was we have no direction of where they want this to go. And you're
Hmm.
asking my clients to pick an aesthetic. So it's not like you're asking them to go from whatever to like modern to rustic or you know
I mean, the mere fact that they're even asking for aesthetic changes, like we would like new hardware on the cabinetry. I mean, that's a hot no.
yeah, and it was
Hot no.
fascinating though that that was a big issue and
Yeah.
they immediately agreed to get rid of the 5 year issues. There was a little bit of foundation and some work that was done to it. They like, we immediately ripped off 20%. And
Hmm.
then we spent some time on the current issues, which
Hmm.
they agreed to do some of them.
Hmm.
And one of them was like a railing, they wanted this railing to be done, whatever. But I bet you we spent in the 3, 4 hours of negotiation of actual on phone time,
Hmm.
which took like 2 days.
Hmm.
I think the hardest part was hinges and cabinetry and locks and door handles.
And while, I
You
mean,
know,
I don't even know what to say about that, except just recently we had a situation where the 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 buyers were like, we suspect that the furnace and the AC are going to be at the end of their life.
the water heater.
So
The water heater is going to go any
so
day now.
so so we would like, an additional $10,000 off because we're most likely going to need to repair those. And that was part of it, part of the no. You don't ask for things to be replaced if they're functioning and well maintained. And sometimes people can have had their furnace completely rebuilt. You know what I'm saying? This is not, I'm not even going to say it because it's not appropriate. Um, but that's what warranties are for. And those are things you see when you're touring a property and you choose to write. But those are things that can just get sellers in the emotional zone of like, no. And we have to remember the seller is still selling their home where they have lived probably maybe 15 years, brought babies home to holidays, birthdays, whatever. And the buyer is buying a property, which is it's a property. So we're still dealing with that whole chasm of detaching the seller from their home because they're selling a property and these people are buying a property and let's get you off to your new place. But I mean, the negotiation post inspection, I think I've noticed the last year or so it being a little bit more demanding from buyers wanting things that 5 years ago wouldn't even have been asked for. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I think
I
if
wonder
you're
what that
saying
is.
if you're saying 5 years, putting it in COVID, I
I
mean,
wonder why that is.
that's
I
a
wonder.
different, I don't know. And
Mhm.
there's no way that I can talk about negotiations without talking personal property. Personal property drives me.
Yeah, well, personal property doesn't make me that crazy because, like, say if
It,
somebody
it is
wants,
100% that emotional zone.
I know, but maybe, the person buying the house would really, really like that pool table on the lower level. Okay. Well, then, don't lowball them and don't ask for closing costs to be paid and then have like this 60-day time frame for closing. And oh, by the way, we want your pool table. That will make people insane. But there is a way to negotiate personal
Can
property.
I call it timeout?
Yeah.
Um, a client of mine will probably listen to this. I would like for you to state Boy Scouts honor that you and I have not talked about a pool table because we're
Oh my
negotiating
gosh.
COVID.
Well, I just
I don't
brought,
want them to
yeah,
think when we talk about confidentiality,
yeah.
da da da,
Okay.
and you brought up a pool table.
Scouts honor. Dave and I have not spoken anything about pool tables. The only reason why I brought that up is because pool tables are probably the most common thing that sellers either want to leave and the buyers don't want it, or the buyers want it and the sellers are like, oh, that's my grandfather's table. Those and hot tubs are in that same realm, as are a lot
Okay,
of
timeout.
times.
Scouts honor.
Oh my God,
We
is
have
there
a
a
hot
hot tub
tub
too?
going. Yeah,
But the other thing that comes up are, sometimes um, if there's a pool, a lot of times the buyer might want all the pool chairs.
right.
And if the sellers are moving to a house that doesn't have a pool, I mean, but that's just personal property, but we can have that on the purchase agreement. And really, technically, as realtors, we're not really supposed to be getting involved in personal property negotiations. But, and again, Scout's honor, I'm just saying those are the most
Right.
commonly
I just, again,
discussed
just
items. And if
for
there's
for
any
the
realtors
record,
watching right now, everybody's laughing because it's like, yep, pool tables, yep, hot tubs, yep, sometimes PlayStations. Yep. Sometimes it's, the, it can be anything.
for
Oh, that
me,
really, what?
it's docks,
Okay. Yeah.
boats, four-wheelers, old
Yeah.
vehicles.
Yeah. Oh my God. There was this one time I used to love to watch $1 Million Listing Los Angeles. I just used to love to watch it on Bravo. In its early days, it was much more real estate focused as opposed to the drama that there is today. But I remember this one buyer from outside of the United States toured this property in Southern California, Los Angeles area. And in the garage was this like ridiculously sick Porsche. I'm going to tell you, I am not a car guy. I really don't care. But this buyer demanded that the agent that he was working for get that Porsche along with the property. And the seller was just unwilling to unload that Porsche for many reasons. I mean, there was not a dollar value that you could have offered the seller to part with this Porsche. And because the agent representing the buyer was unsuccessful in getting the seller to leave the Porsche in the garage, when they walked out of the house, the buyer looked at the seller and he goes, "You are fired. You failed. You failed me with getting that Porsche." And I remember thinking, "Oh my God, that's crucial." But there are people like that. There
Oh yeah.
really are. I mean,
We've had,
even in little old Minnesota, there are people like that.
do you know how
So
many animals I've negotiated?
animals, oh, like little donkey?
Yeah, we've had a little bit of everything.
Really? Like
Yep.
chickens?
Oh yeah, that's the easy ones.
The chickens?
Hmm. Yeah, a lot of
Uh,
four-legged ones. And
I had
speaking of four-legged,
a
we won't say her name, but a mutual friend of ours. Did you see her video over the weekend with her showing yesterday?
Are you talking about a realtor?
Yeah, we can't
Why did
we
you
don't want to
say
say her name.
four-legged?
She's one of our breakfast companions. She had a house with
No,
a
I didn't
full
see it.
had a house. They were doing a showing, was
Uh-huh.
not in the agent remarks, was
Okay.
not in the showing apparatus, a full-size pig
Oh my God. Inside the house?
inside the house.
No, I didn't see that. That's too good. No, but I mean, it could have been an emotional support animal
Yeah, but
because some people have
notifying,
like some people have little miniature horses.
yeah, I think there's something to be said about as an agent, I would want to know that there's a full-size anything.
If I would have walked into a house and
I
had
don't
a
even care
full
if it's a little
size,
Yorkie. I
I
just want to know.
know, but if I would have walked into a house and had a full size pig come cruising around the corner from the kitchen, think I would have, I think I would have flipped. Or
I
I would have said, "Oh, little piggy, 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 come here, little."
I don't mind having, do you have your phone by you? I will text you this agent's name.
Oh, so
Um, I don't mind that things are in the
that
house.
is so good. A pig.
The one that I don't like is the warning, do not let cats out. They will bolt for the door. I'm
Oh
like,
my
oh
gosh.
my God, I hate
The
those.
kitty, I know the kitty cats scare me because it's like I want to go in that room. We need to go in that room. But if that little kitty cat
Or the
bolts
front
out,
door.
well, the thing is because, hey, let's be real. When we show a property, it's it's our responsibility to make sure that that cat does not get out.
Yeah.
Period. I mean,
I've never lost an animal. Have you?
I've never lost an animal, but there was one day when I was really, really, really scared that I did lose a kitty cat. And I'm not a cat person, but I'm learning slowly to realize just how cool cats are. They're just different than dogs. But we found this little kitty. It was just scared and hiding under a bed, and we were able to get Kitty back into where the kitty started when we entered the house, which was probably anyway, it was like a back room, but little kitty just got out and bolted and hid, and we found little kitty and put him back. But no, I was scared. I was not leaving that house without knowing exactly where that cat was.
The most
Like,
the most scared I've ever been, I was doing an open house and I was at the island putting together my little flyers and business cards.
mhm,
I didn't know the seller had a cat, and the cat jumped up
mhm.
and landed on the island, like in
Mm.
front of me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Did you poop your pants?
no, but my first thought is you kind of wanted to like punch the thing
Oh,
because it
David.
scared you.
Oh
Not
yeah.
because of that. I mean, I did, but it's that
Oh,
what fight or
I
flight, and I
I
think
did
mine at the moment was fight, and I was
I
like,
just got your text. Okay. That is funny stuff.
yeah. So the agent that we know that got that,
Oh, no, I did not. I did not. I did not.
yeah. So I was texting
But
her
I mean, the
yesterday.
bottom line is everything is negotiable. Price, terms, closing date, inspection,
Commission.
I mean, commission, appraisals. I mean, everything is negotiable. And you can even have to discuss certain items. I mean, but which is why it's an art, because if you just present it in a professional manner, and again, I'm the mouthpiece, this is what they're asking for. Um, so anyway,
All right. Well,
it's every day is different. That is for sure. And but
going.
I will, oop, my little headphone fell out. I will plug again. If you've never done the CRS negotiation classes, they are really, really good. And they're very practical. And I learned a lot from them. And it just also pays to be a decent human being, you know?
I agree. All right. Well, that wraps up 19. 20.
Woo!
20 next week. Can you believe that?
Woo! Little Donkey. I did not negotiate Little Donkey, but I used Little Donkey as a prop to get the other house sold because of Little Donkey.
I like.
I, I love Little Donkey.
So
Bye bye, David.
see you later. Bye.